Hello everyone, Joe Lovery here from Below Par. So in today's video then, we're looking at, do we get a GPS device or a rangefinder? Now the differences between the two, something like a GPS device is something that picks out via satellite. So it starts to give you distances like front, middle and back to hazards and bunkers. And then we have a laser that you manually pick targets and zap that target to give you a distance. So we've just been looking at our YouTube stats and 97% of people still haven't subscribed. We'd really appreciate it if you did hit that subscribe button. We're starting to offer a lot more advice content, a lot more product reviews. We're going to be doing a lot more coaching videos and even some course vlogs this year. So if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do. It's free and we're going to offer loads of information to you. So you'll be looking to buy a distance measuring device for potentially two reasons. You either want to learn your distances better, or you already know your distances and you want to start applying that when out on the golf course. Now, obviously there's going to be pros and cons for each one, whether you go for a watch or whether you go for a laser. Now, let's start with the GPS units. I know I just called it a watch, but they do come in kind of three different variations essentially. You've got the watches that you wear, so like the Apple Watch I'm wearing now, this will do distances on it with an app, but you do have certain ones like Garmin and Bushnell. They will do watches that you can wear and they just purely give you your golf distances to front, middle and back. So you've got a nice display on with those. They then also come in ones that clip onto your bag, and then you get the more advanced stuff. So they start to look a bit more like iPhone kind of size, some of them 6-inch screen, I think, with the Sky Caddy. And that one in particular then starts to give you an ability with a touch screen to start drawing basically on the screen with a map of the hole on it, and you can start to tap and it will tell you how far it is to that point and then also how far it is to the green from there, which is amazing. However, obviously they start to get more expensive. I think the basic model starts at around about £100, and then there's something like the Sky Caddy I think is 300 something pounds and above, and I think there's also a monthly subscription with that as well. Well, there was about 6 months ago or so, I believe. And then we go into a rangefinder. So a rangefinder is purely a laser. So it is something that you hold, it'll just fire out a laser, it then comes back and basically tells you how far that distance is to the point that you've hit, essentially. So you could fire a tree, a flag, water, those sorts of things, and you'll be able to get a reading. Now let's chat then about the positives of buying a GPS device. So we're going to chat about the watches and clip-ons on the bag. Now the first thing you're going to find is the front, middle and back distances. So if you're somebody that wants to have a generic idea of how far away you are from the front, middle or back, they're really going to help. The other thing that's really nice with that, often allows you to figure out, okay, if it's 135 to the front, we know the pin is a yellow pin, for example, so it's a middle flag, and it's 145 or 155 back, you've got an idea of what clubs go between that distance. You know you might need to make a carry because there's water at the front, so suddenly you hit enough club to get over the water, and there we go. You've got the watch has done its job and it's given you its distance. The other time you would find something like that really useful is if you're playing a brand new golf course. Having the layout of the hole, being able to know the distance to dog legs without trying to pick out certain points is just unbelievably useful. That also is going to help with speed of play, because rather than having to hit front, back, then trying to guesstimate how far the middle of the fairway is, this thing will just tell you, it will give you the answers on that, which is really good. The other times you'll find GPS really useful, they give you distances to hazards, and sometimes the hazards you can't see, so you know, then you wouldn't be able to use a laser, you wouldn't be able to get that hazard, and even if it's a new course, you wouldn't even know it's there. Whereas something like a GPS device is going to give you that distance. It might say water 200 yards and you think, oh, can I see 100 to the top of this hill? And that sometimes can come in really useful. So let's go to then really one of the last positives you're going to get with one of these devices is the ease of use when they connect to the satellite, which is super easy. When you get to the golf course, you turn it on, it connects, it's ready to go. And secondly, it starts to give you a bit of an overview of the shape of greens and size of greens. So that then just means you just get a bit more of an idea of the course. Now, obviously, as many of you will be aware, golf courses just aren't selling course planners anymore. And that's something that so many of us used to rely on when we're going to a course. I used to have quite a big collection of course planners, but now these little devices do it all for us. So actually, if you have one of these devices, you're essentially getting free course planners to the course. So some cons then of the GPS stuff. I find that some of the watches, certainly this one for me, I can't play golf with this. It's too big and it's uncomfortable when it's on my wrist and I'm hitting golf shots. I think also some of the watches do get quite heavy as well, so just be aware of that. Some of the ones that clip onto your bag, I find they're just not the most user friendly at times. They can often be almost a little bit, it's a really hard one to describe, a bit archaic in the way they work, a bit slow, not quite as precise as what you'd like. I've seen it before as well where the accuracy on these isn't brilliant. I've played with somebody, I've hit it with a laser, they've got theirs and we're like 20 yards out, which for really good players is gonna make a difference. You can't get the pin on these, you can guess where the pin is and drag it across on certain models, but it's not gonna tell you where the pin is on the green. Absolutely fine for around your home track. You're going to be able to guess where that pin is pretty quickly from sight and work it out off the watch. However, if you're going somewhere new, you're not going to be able to make that judgment quite as quickly. And I think one of the real last cons of using one of the GPS devices is if your golf course isn't on their system. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's thousands of courses. I think it's 30, 40,000 on some of Garmin's watches, maybe more now. But I've seen it where they've gone to a course and they're not able to load it because it's simply not been mapped yet. So let's chat then about the positives of using a laser. And I think something that it really brings to the table is just the accuracy of how good and how precise it is. I've got a Bushnell and it measures to something like half a yard. So if you're 50 yards away, it'll tell you it's 50.1 yards. I mean, I'm not good enough to get that 50.1, but it is amazing how accurate these things are. Also, for me, ease of use, being able to use it on the practice ground as well. The amount of times I've gone to a driving range and there's no distances to, let's say, a tyre that's out there or a few signs, or the 100-yard sign, stood there warming up, hitting your 100-yard shot thinking, this is going nowhere near it, what's going on? And then you Bushnell it and it's 120 yards away from the bay you're in. So it just means that you start to get a bit more of an understanding of your game, how far you hit it, just from this laser. The cons of a laser, if you haven't got a very steady hand, often you can just not hit the target you're trying to hit at all and it doesn't take a reading. And I've seen people before that are quite slow with them, certainly if their hand isn't very steady. The second thing, people getting misreads on targets. Joe famously did this in our video with Mark James when we're doing a Ryder Cup battle in the playoff hole, stands there, hits I think a club that was 165 rather than 25 because it hit the trees beyond the green and didn't get the pin, which I have seen happen over and over again. Equally, I've had it before where I can't pick up the flag with mine. It's incredibly frustrating. Other cons I've had with it then, if I'm in the trees, I've had to run out into the fairway to get a reading and then guess the distance back to where my bag is, or I've then had to Bushnell back to the bag to get a reading. It's not quite ideal. It's not quite as quick as what I'd like. Equally, sometimes off the tee, it can just mean that you can't hit the areas you want. Like for example, when you're teeing off over a hill, trying to get that distance down on the slope, you can't see it. You've got 100 yards to the top of the slope, you just can't hit anything then beyond that. So unfortunately, then it turns into a bit of a guessing game. The last con as well, it doesn't really show you any kind of overview of the course. You purely look through a magnifying lens with a circle on it, and that's where the laser's shooting out. So you never actually get any kind of layout, green shape or position of the pin just looking through the laser. Now, there are what we call hybrid lasers, and I've seen a few of these about. So what you have is a laser and it has a front, middle and back on the side. So for a lot of people that can be incredibly useful and a really nice thing to have with the extra, but they are expensive. I think they were 300 and something pounds. So it is a lot of money for what it is, but obviously extremely useful. And I mean, for a lot of people, these do genuinely improve their games. They start to know how far the pin is, they start to know how far they're hitting it. It does really, really help. Now, what would I recommend? So I would recommend certainly doing some research into some different ones that are on the market. So I would look down the Garmin route. I've recommended a couple of Garmin S10s very recently. So they do the S20, they also do an S10. The S10 is the cheapest one they make, and I think it's exceptional. It's so simple. You turn it on, front, middle, back, done. That's what a lot of people need. I think if you're playing a lot of courses that you haven't played before, so you're not a member of a golf course and you're going around and playing loads of different courses and you're struggling with the mapping and they're not doing course planners, something like that Sky Caddy would be incredible. Looks like an iPhone, huge screen, you can map your scores, track all that sort of stuff. That's really cool. Certainly if you're into your gadgets a bit, I'd be recommending one of those. If you're somebody that's maybe a little bit more simple when it comes to technology, doesn't want something that's a bit OTT, just want to know a distance to a flag, then I'd recommend getting something like a laser. So that then is my video as to which one should you be looking at. There's obviously pros and cons for each really stand on their own merit. It's just really a case of what would you prefer. Do you want something that simply clips on your bag, you look at it, it gives you the reading? Do you want to be a little bit more precise yourself and start getting your own readings? Whatever you prefer, then you can start to make a more justified decision about what it is that you want. So guys, thank you very much for watching today's video. Really appreciate you tuning in. If there's any questions or you have any questions about any of the products I've spoken about today, do drop me a comment below. I'm more than happy to help you when it comes to making your purchase. But as I say, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit that subscribe button and thank you very much for watching.